welcome to the business panel. We're really looking forward to this. We hope you enjoy it. The panel, I'm very excited about being the moderator, but actually I'm more excited about the panelists. I think John's introduction, you can see we have a wide range of experience, and we have a lot of great leaders here that have really accomplished a lot in their careers. We're not going to start off with a dissertation from each of the board members, the panelists up here. What we really want is a discussion. And we want the audience to actually participate in that discussion. So if you have a point you'd like to make, or if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll call on you and we'll let you participate. We think that's a better way to go in this kind of forum. We're going to talk about business, what makes a successful business, what are the attributes and qualities of what you're looking for, and I think you have some real nice dissection of a smaller company that's just starting out with an idea, mid-sized companies, and even a large company. And again, as John said, my name is Sean Hennessy. I'm the CFO for the Sherwin-Williams Company. We're not going to go through the bios, but we'll just give you a little bit of background in each of us when we get the opportunity to answer a question. I grew up on 135th and Purtis, went to Ascension. I think I learned everything I know in life being at Ascension with Father Fogarty. But I've been a lifelong Clevelander except for two small stints, one in Boston and one in San Francisco. So mostly a West Sider. Spent a little time on the East Side, and reminded myself to get back to the West. So I've been with Sherwin-Williams 30 years, the last 13 as CFO. And Sherwin-Williams is an $11 billion worldwide company, but our headquarters is right here in Cleveland, and it's going to stay here. And we're very successful. And we think part of our Cleveland heritage is a big part of it. We still run the plant. The original plant is now our R&D center. So with that, again, no dissertation. We're going to go right into some questions. I'm probably going to call John. John, maybe you can give us a little background on your company. You just moved your company here to Cleveland, and what was some of the factors that made you decide to go that way? And give us a little background, please.
Sure. Well, thanks a lot, Sean. So I'm John McCants. May Security International is the company I run, and what I did, based on three big factors, and I think the rest of the panel will agree, it's people, logistics, and constantly innovation. And so when I took over Mace, we moved everything to Cleveland, Ohio. So we're at 4400 Carnegie. One of the big reasons why is because of Park, Ohio, Sherwin-Williams, Progressive Insurance, Eaton, Parker Hannifin. There's a great diverse workforce, whether it's somebody in a warehouse, somebody in manufacturing, or somebody in a front office, or somebody in finance. There's great people we can draw upon. And then big for me was also logistics. As you find in the world and with Tommy Griffith's business, moving things around quickly and efficiently is very important. So for my products and services, we can ship 2/3 of the country in a day out of our Cleveland facility. We can hit almost any highway. We can be Texas and beyond within 2 to 3 days. So it was very important for us to be able to get goods to people quickly, cheaply, and effectively. And the last thing is innovation. Constantly, if you're not changing, you're dying is the phrase that a lot of entrepreneurs use. So we constantly are able to tap into Magnet with Case Western Reserve, with John Carroll University, with Cleveland State University to create innovative products that fulfill a need.
So John, when you moved your company from Pennsylvania, how is the people quality-wise and just experiences here in Ohio compared to other parts of the country you've seen?
Right. Well, one of the big things, and I think, and this is one of the things we share with Mayo, is that Midwest philosophy, right? You don't get too upset. You don't get, too happy, too sad. You kind of stay in the middle of the road, which I think is important. That's what we found with a lot of our people. During security, we can save a life, we can lose a life, because if our products don't work effectively as we prescribe, somebody could get seriously injured. And so we found here people with that type of mentality and then also that type of experience was critical.
Thank you, Jen. Well, Tommy, you're running a company in Mayo, and it's interesting. You came up with an idea, you saw a need in the marketplace, and you built a company. And first in Mayo, and then you've been around the world. You've been in South America, and here in Cleveland. So maybe I can turn to you and ask you, maybe you can take us through with that, taking an idea into a company and then building that company. What were the key things you needed to be successful?
Perfect. Tommy Griffiths is my name, and I'm own and founded a company called PEL. So the idea, where did the idea come from? We're based in Bath. We manufacture the stuff in Bath. After college, I went to college in Galway, studied mechanical engineering, degree in mechanical engineering. Worked for a company called McCabe, so I was in research and development and prototyping. Then I went into the sales area of the business. From there, I worked for a medical device company, again, a totally different industry. Being from a farming background, it was destined to be self-employed. So I was looking for an area that we could grow a business within. So that was in 2005, and waste was becoming a major issue, and recycling was the buzzword. So I looked to come up with a product that we could enter that market and grow as that market started to move. So initially when I started the business, I started buying in machines for building cardboards and plastics. And from there I was looking for a niche product. So following a bit of research and speaking to the business owners about what their issues were, mainly the hospitality sector, bottles was a major issue. Storage of bottles. In a lot of places, the likes of Dublin or London, where you have no space, if their glass isn't collected every day, they have a major problem. So I set about designing a product for reducing glass waste, and PL bottle crushers were born. So from there, I then set about developing our own range of balers, machines for reducing general waste, and selling them nationally. So to grow a business, if a business can work in Ireland, it can work anywhere in the world. A simple way of looking at it, I often say the biggest pub owner in Ireland has about 22 pubs. So when you start coming over here, going to the UK, where you have pub groups that have 1,000 pubs, 1,500 pubs, your market is infinite. So from there, the idea and the concept was born. I suppose being in an island country, everything, you have to look beyond that. So we've a few different ways of distribution. We're currently servicing the Irish market, the UK market, Holland, France, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Australia. Oftentimes when we pick our markets, we look for culture. So obviously the American market was one we were going to look at. In some markets we sell to distributors, in others we sell our own base. So in Ireland we sell direct, we do rental, Booker, we do direct sale. In the UK, I have my own base in London, so we sell to the UK market there. So then the American market was when I started looking at, because of the culture and because waste was something that isn't being looked at that greatly. So I started out in DC, so I set up a base in DC and I put my own guys on the ground up there. Proved difficult. Then the twinning of Cuyahoga County and Mayo came about, and the County Enterprise Board had invited me to the reception and to the different business meetings, and I was lucky enough then to meet with John and a few of the colleagues from Cleveland. So John said to me, he said, look, why don't you come over to Cleveland and we look at what's going on there in the waste industry. So I said, absolutely. So things were only very mediocre up in DC, so coming down here, everything's perfect climate. Currently here in Ohio, 90% of all waste bottles go to landfill. There's 4 manufacturers of glass bottles and glass materials here in Ohio. So we have a perfect marketplace, and yet not the bottles are still going to landfill. They're short 275,000 tonnes of coloured raw material to produce that glass. They bring it in as virgin material. So the market is perfect. So from there, we set up a new company over here called PEL America, and John is a partner, and Dan Hanna now is a partner in the business. So we're going to push that business from here to look at the rest of the states, and mainly here to start. Our forecast is over the next 6 to 8 months we'll put 5 people on the ground, and over the next 12 to 18 months we hope to bring 15 and 20. So that's where we've come from, and that's where our plan is to go. We keep, I suppose, as a business, a major part of it is research and development, and that's down to everyone within the business, where everyone has an innovative, creative atmosphere. come up with new ideas, separate ourselves from our competitors, even in the simplest ways. Oftentimes the simplest things work. So that's where we're going to. I was lucky enough to receive a few awards as finalist in the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in 2009. We won Best Award for Shell Water for Innovation. And this year at the Gulf Food Trade Show in Dubai, which is the biggest hospitality trade show in the world, with over 1,000 stands, we won Best Product. So we're moving forward. It's a great journey. We're only at the beginning. Our future is bright, and we're going to drive it on to a major international company. So thank you very much.
Very nice success story there. Really nice building block. You know, sitting right next to you is Ed Crawford, and Ed, talking about success. You talk about someone that's had a lot of experience. You probably listen to Tommy's story, and you know, probably remember some of the earlier successes you've had. Hearing Tommy speak and seeing that kind of growth and those ideas, what are the qualities of things that you're looking for in an area that give you the confidence that you're going to have a successful manufacturing business?
Well, number one, it's a great story. I was called, or flattered to be called one time a serial entrepreneur. I hope you become a serial entrepreneur. It's quite an exciting future for you. But just a little bit to the Irish content of, about a year ago, as I was asked for something at Case Western Reserve University, well, Mr. Crawford, you've had a wonderful career here in Ohio and so forth. How did you get to Cleveland? I said, well, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever been asked that, but you know, my mother and father, both Irishers, decided in 1948 that they would take the two of them and, of course, their three boys, and go to California. He was an electrician. So it was kind of a venture, and we left Manhattan, where we lived at that time, went down the New Jersey Turnpike. We turned west, and there was the Pennsylvania Turnpike. But when we got to Ohio, there was no Ohio Turnpike in 1948. So you got off on Route 7, which took you directly north into Conneaut, Ohio, which incidentally, I'm the largest employer today in Conneaut, Ohio, with some 400 employees. But we turned west again on Route 20, which goes, as everyone knows, right through downtown Cleveland. And there used to be on St. Clair, the Sterling Hotel. And on Sunday morning in 1948, in June, the truck blew up. So we took the morning to go out with Mom to the west side for the apartment. Later that afternoon, went out to the east side. And of course, my father was highly employable as an electrician. So that's how my serial entrepreneurship career started in Cleveland.
Mary, you're with the Team Neo, and you know, a lot of the things that you're doing is attracting businesses here to Northeast Ohio, and listening to Tommy's story or John's story, two people that have come here. Ed, you know, now we know he's been here since 1948, so you didn't have to attract him. You didn't have to attract Sherwin-Williams. We've been here 150 years, so hard to believe. What are the selling points of this area you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stories we just heard are exactly the case studies we love to share with people. We have so many great assets here, and just, you know, we always say that we're never going to be Chicago, we're never going to be New York, nor do we want to be those cities. I think that's a lot like Mayo saying you'll never be Dublin, which you probably don't want to be Dublin. I mean, there's things that we like to embrace, the strengths that we have. And one thing that, you know, our motto, we are Cleveland Plus business. So as Team Neo, we represent 18 counties in Northeast Ohio. So we have a very wide area that we cover: Canton, Akron, Cleveland, Youngstown. I mean, very diverse areas and great assets in each of those. So one tagline that we have is we make things, and we really have always made things here. And I think that goes back to the heart of manufacturing, where we may not be making the same things that we used to make, but we've gotten smarter, we've gotten more, you know, advanced in the manufacturing, medical devices, things that have come out of the original steel for auto and steel for other things. And we've bounced back. We had a rut there when the auto industry is slowing down and things are happening, and people have been able to reinvent themselves. And I think entrepreneurship, even before it was the buzzword has really been embraced here in Northeast Ohio, that if you have an idea, you're gonna gain support, and people are gonna help you, complete your job and do the best that you can do. And I think it's really, we try and say it's the people. I mean, I think John said it, whether it's skilled workforce, we are close proximity to so many of the major markets. It's just a better cost of living, quality of life. I mean, Cleveland Orchestra, one of my colleagues just got back from Amsterdam, where the Cleveland Orchestra played there, and they were able to host companies in Europe there for that event. I mean, it's one of those things that we take for granted, I think, having all those assets in our backyard, but it's our job, is to sell Northeast Ohio and make sure people understand how many great things there are to do here and the great people that work here and live here. And it's truly just, I think it's really just the people and the atmosphere that anyone can do what you want to do, and you'll get support to help it.
Thank you. I'm with Sherwin. I'd just like to throw a couple points out here. We are coming up on 150 years old, 1866. Ed Sherwin, and Henry Sherwin started the business, and they were right there on the river. And if you go by the river today, our original plant is our worldwide R&D function. So we have well over 300 chemists and PhDs in chemistry and so forth. And when I go in the building, the average IQ goes way down. But they're just tremendous. And I just want to piggyback on what Mary just said. We also have a tech center in Warrensville, right across the street from Thistledown. I don't know how many people know that. We bought the old BP site. We'd outgrown the site on the river, and that's the original factory, and we thought about, do we expand there? And we also had, Chicago was a very big town for us, and we had an R&D function there for vehicle refinish paint and product finish paint and protective and marine paint. And we moved it to Warrensville. And you can imagine some of the reaction of people, saying, wait a minute, I'm going to leave Chicago and I'm going to go to Warrensville and come to Cleveland. And I would tell you, we had a lot of people, we did a little hand-holding. And I would tell you, there's an old saying that people used to say, the second hardest thing to do in the world is to get someone to move to Cleveland. The hardest is to get them to move out after they've lived here for a while. And I think a lot of our R&D people felt that. And, as we continue to develop as our company, we have to continue to develop, and I'm going to just tag along with everyone else, people. You have to have the right technical people. You have to have those skills. And I would tell you the people in Northeast Ohio are tremendous. And what I mean by that is, you have the ability to get people that really know R&D, chemistry. You think about Akron U and the Polymer Science School that's there, Case Western Reserve. Great engineers, great science coming out of those. Cleveland State, we get a lot of chemists from Cleveland State. And then the financial side. We do all our payroll here in Ohio and worldwide, or in Cleveland. So we have the system. We are worldwide, and we're in China. And we're one of the first people that I've talked to that the people in China are working off systems in Cleveland, Ohio. Our connectivity in Cleveland is second to none. With that AT&T building over there off of Ontario, you don't understand the asset that is. And the ring that they've put in this area. So right down here on St. Clair, we have a data center that's going in because a company has built that data center, and they built it here because of that connectivity. And I think that's what makes this area so great is we make things, but we do things. The idea, can we do all payroll in Cleveland, Ohio for the country? Can you do worldwide systems? Can you run the system? So if you're in our China plan right now, and you're bringing up the system, you're working off a server in Cleveland, Ohio, and you don't know it. Or if you're in Chile, or if you're in Hungary, all of the systems that we run off of a server in Cleveland, Ohio. And I think that's amazing. And it's because of the people we have, the connectivity here and so forth, so.
Sean, it might be a good segue for Peter to talk a little bit about the connectivity that's happening in Mayo, which is It's kind of, you know, similar to what you had talked about in Cleveland. You can take this.
Yeah, actually it is, and in the presentation this morning, we talked about four things that would kind of have guided our relationship with Cuyahoga this far. The first was connectivity, the second was communication, third was collaboration, and it's all in the context of what these 2 days or day and a half and the parallel session next door is about, which is diaspora, and the sense that Mayo isn't just a county with 130,000 people, that it's a county that has communities spread all over the globe of some 3.5 million. And the relationship with Cuyahoga, building on the twinning between Achill and Cleveland over the past 11 years, is starting to explore where that can take us in terms of real business connection. In terms of physical connectivity, fibre optics is the way of the future, most definitely. And we have, for the past 4 years, been working to try and encourage and support and in any way we can influence a particular project which is being developed by a company called Emerald Express. And it's very close. It's not for me to say just how close it is, because it's a private company, private venture, but there is information out there in the public domain which we can refer to. It's about 350 million investment, and if it gets past the line, and there are competing cables as well, but taking the positive view from Mayo for a second, if it gets past the line in the next couple of months, it will be the first new transatlantic fibre optic cable laid for I think about 10 years, perhaps even longer. It would be the fastest cable connecting New York to London and on to Frankfurt and the financial markets in Europe. I have no doubt that business done on that cable will come back to the servers that Sean is talking about here in Cleveland, and it will transform connectivity not just in Mayo, but in the island of Ireland, because right now there is no cable that comes through Ireland into the UK or into Europe. All of the cables that serve us, and we are quite well served on the East Coast, not so well served on the West Coast, are spurs coming back from the UK. So that's the connectivity thing. On the communication thing, we're trying to establish or build on, and Tommy referred to it, the shared language and set of values and ethos that we have as a community that have come from a kind of a common stock. And I'm not a businessman, and it's not my place to try and do business. I'm a public servant. I work with the elected members, the mayor and the elected members, to try and make our county the best that it can possibly be. And what we're trying to do is build the most supportive environment that we can possibly build, the kind of county where people don't ask why should we do things, they ask why should we not do things, why can we not do things, and there is nothing that we cannot do if we put our minds to it properly. That's where the conversation with Cuyahoga starts from, and Tommy's an example of where it can go to. And a success story so far I referred to. I think it is going to be a bigger success story. It's going to grow, and hopefully it's going to spawn other things in serial entrepreneurship. And I hope it's something that is contagious and spreads through the rest of the county. In terms of collaboration, what we mean by that is that we want to see this be a two-way conversation. We want to see business done both ways. We want business to be done here in Cleveland, coming out of Mayo, and we want business in Mayo to be done coming out of Cleveland, because if it isn't reciprocal, it doesn't work, it can't be sustained. And the phrase that we've used is we want to see Mayo become the stepping stone from Cuyahoga, from Cleveland, from Ohio into the European market, and we want to see Cleveland be the stepping stone from Mayo and Ireland into the US and into the Canadian markets, and that's the kind of vision that we have. And it is all based around, and that's why this discussion over these 2 days is so important from our point of view. It's not something new. We've been working at this in Mayo for quite some time, and the exploration of the power of the diaspora and the head start that it gives us in terms of communication is where it all springs from.
Thank you, Peter. And I guess I'd like to ask our last panelist, who has an opportunity, Ed McNamara. You know, when you look at all these different changes, environments, and you know, you look at Mayo versus Cleveland and so forth, what are the risks that you're seeing? How have they changed over the last 5 years, and how are they different?
Thank you, Sean. My name is Ed McNamara, and I'm from Aon Risk Services, the largest insurance broker in the world. I work here out of Cleveland, and we have offices all over Ireland. And I find it interesting because any time I get anywhere near Ed Crawford, I always pick his brain. And I asked him today, what do you think about, entrepreneurs? What do you get business advice that you give? And he says, well, there's plenty of people to give advice about finances and money and everything else, because I always teach them about the risks of the business. I don't know if any represent conversation, but it's interesting because that's the business that everybody tries to do. When you talk to the legal people that are all here today, their whole business is helping to figure out the eliminate or lessen the risk. And it's interesting because even the small companies today in Cleveland, Ohio, and everywhere else are looking to expand their products globally, in and out of Ireland, in and out of China, everywhere else. And one of the things you have to take into consideration is the risks. And those risks really are the unknowns. You can compare, your healthcare systems that are different, your liability is different. And so there's a huge amount of risk that everybody takes. And I think what I learned from Benny Crawford is if you can mitigate those risks, if you can eliminate those risks, your chances of success are much greater. And so, unfortunately, risks in the litigious society in the U.S. is much greater than that of Europe in some ways. And so what we try to do is try to figure out ways to insure those risks or eliminate those altogether. So it's a global market, and no matter how small you are, no matter how big you are, you can now work and trade throughout, just like Sherwin-Williams does in Park, Ohio. You can see now that Mace and Pell all seem to be working globally, and hopefully they can all eliminate the risks.
Thank you. And again, anyone in the audience that has a question? Yes, sir.
My question is for Peter. I think another success story is the Allergan Corporation. I was talking to Peter this morning about it. It's in Westport, makes Botox. I'm not sure how many employees. I think it's like 2,000.
Not quite. It's 1,000, but they are doubling the size of the plant. They just finished out a building phase on that. They're obviously into commissioning and regulations and approvals and all of that. It'll take another 2 years before they're in production. But they're currently on 1,000 and they're going upwards.
Maybe you could tell me, because my fourth cousin is Pat O'Donnell, who's the managing director of Allergan, and I know that he comes to Irvine, which is the corporate headquarters where my brother lives, and I know it's a cooperative between the United States and Westport. I don't know how it came about, but just a little history on myself. My dad was born here in Cleveland. His grandfather immigrated in 1861 to Cleveland from the Coron area in County Mayo. His brother, Hugh, this was Neil that came here, his brother Hugh stayed in Kilmena, and that's his great-grandson today that's the managing director of Allergan. So maybe you could tell me, how did that cooperative start, and is that a good example?
It's a fantastic example, and it's a great example for a number of reasons. That the connection that you've just pointed out goes to the heart of what we believe the power of the diaspora to be. And whereas it's not always in the gift of an individual to decide that because of a family connection or because of a particular attachment to a place that they're going to make a substantial investment there, sometimes it does have an influence. In the case of Allergan, it's almost a little bit of happenstance and good luck, rather than happenstance perhaps is the phrase. Back in 1977, the IDA had a very small advanced factory. The policy at the time was, build facilities and then try and attract industry into them. That's changed since, because things have become so specialized. You don't build anything until you know what you're building it for. But it was there, and it was shown to a number of corporations, and one of them was Allergan. Now, it was a very small plant, but it was the start. And the personal connection between the MD and one of the major shareholders at the time, called Gavin Herbert, and one of our local entrepreneurs who had worked in the States and had worked as an intern in DC, kind of clicked, and the board were convinced to choose Westport ahead of 3 or 4 other sites in Ireland. The decision to go to Ireland had been made for corporate reasons. So that's where it started from. It started in 1977 with, I think, less than 50 people. And then after that, the place has to kick in, the government has to kick in, the environment has to kick in, and it did. And over the years, and it's a tribute to local management and to people like Pat O'Donnell, who is, I don't know if you know the term Covey, but if you're born within a certain distance of the town of Westport, you can qualify after 3 generations for the term Covey. He's a Covey. He's Westport through and through. And his career has always been about development, management skills and growth in that corporation. He's now MD of the whole Irish operation. And he's one of the management teams over the 30 years that have grown it from less than 50 to over 1,000 at this stage. And as a testament to the success that they have brought, the competition will be going back about 5 years ago now to provide or invest in the next generation of biologics manufacturing plants was boiled down at the end to Singapore with a lower cost base, lower tax base, and better incentives, and Westport. And Westport won out because of reliability, because of the people, and because of the management skills. That's where the last investment, which is about 350 million, which is doubling the size of the plant, and it won't double the workforce because there's transfer things involved, but it would certainly bring another 300-400 jobs into Mayo. So as an example, and as a story at the upper end of the kind of job creation and investment scale, it's a very good example. And Pat recently had a little bit of a health challenge, and he's just recovering from open heart surgery, so we will convey the good wishes of Cleveland to him on his recovery. He's expected to be back at the desk and driving forward on the 1st of January.
And for the Sherman-Williams fella, my dad was a sign painter, born here in Pittsburgh, and he would use nothing but Sherman-Williams paint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your dad's a very smart man.